we're going to start with number 1. Matt has the following grades in his science class of 92, 85, 96, and 100. If he has one more test to take in the class, what must he make to finish the grading period with an average of 90? So we know that he has these 4 grades already. He's going to have one more, but he wants an average of 90. There's different ways that you can approach a question like this. One way is, if you're not sure, you could take each one of these answer choices, add them in with the 4 that you have, and see where you get a 90. Let's just begin with adding up these 4 numbers. So if we take 92 plus 85 plus 96 plus 100, and we add those 4 up using our calculator, we get a total of 373. Now, by the definition of average, if we want to have an average of 90, we need to know what total points divided by 5 test scores would give us a 90. And to solve for x in this case, we're going to multiply 9 times 50. X has got to equal 450. So we need 450 points of those 5 scores to have an average of 90. We have 373. So we could take 450 and subtract from that 373, and we get 77. That means Matt needs to make a 77 to have an average of 90. So he needs to make, for an exact average of 90, he needs 77 points, and that is answer choice A. Question number 2 says that the baseball team sold meal tickets to raise money for the season. If the following number of tickets were sold by each of the players, what is the mean, median, and mode for each ticket sales? So we need to know what these 3 values are and how to distinguish those when we have a set of data. And here are our data points. Let's see how many data points we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 data points, and that's going to come into play in different places. Now, you can decide what you want to do, since we have to do mean, median, and mode, and that's how each of these answer choices are listed. It may be that we don't necessarily have to find them in that order, mean, median, and mode. We could find one item, and that would be the distinguishing factor if it's choice A through D. I think it's going to be to try mode first, because mode is the one that occurs the most often in the data set. So when we're looking through this data set, I see a 20, I see another 20, and another 20 there. Do we have any other repeats? We don't have any other repeats. So that's going to tell us that our mode is 20. Now, as it's listing the values, the mode is the 3rd position. So we have a 20 in A and a 20 in C. What that tells us is already B and D are eliminated. So the next distinguishing factor, if I were to look at A and C, they both have 21 for median. So it's not going to do me any good to figure out the median. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But what we need to look at is the mean. And remember, mean is also average. So the next step that we want to do is we want to find the average of these 10 values. So we need to add all of these up. And when I add all those up on my calculator, I get a total of 223. For average or mean, we're going to divide by the total number of values, which is 10. And that's going to give us 22.3, which is the mean that we find in answer choice C. Now, if we needed to find the median, that's the value in the middle position. Okay, so this is the mean here, and then this is going to be our mode. If we wanted to find the median for even number of values, you're going to arrange the numbers. I usually arrange them from least to greatest, but you could also do greatest to least. And then we're going to look for the values in the middle positions. So let's say I'm going to do the median here. And if I'm arranging these from least to greatest, I'm going to go 15, 18, Let's see, we've got 3 20s, so 20, 20, 20. We have to list each one. It is a data point. Then we have 22. And we actually could stop right here. And I'm going to stop because when I have 10 values, the middle position is between 5 and 6, the 5th and the 6th positions. So here we have right here between 5 and 6. So to find the median, we're going to take the average of those two, 20 plus 22. We should be able to look and tell that 21 is the median, and it goes in between these two. Now, if this was an odd number, you're going to have an exact middle position that is one of your values in your data set. Let's say if it was 9, your middle position would be at 5. You have 4 values below you and 4 values above you. So when you order from least to greatest, it's the one in the middle position. So make sure you know how to do mean, median, and mode and those distinctions. For question number 3, we have a chart, and it says Susan is an advertising manager and prepares a monthly report for her supervisor. All that first sentence is not really relevant to what we need to know. We have a monthly sales chart below. What's the average number of Susan's ads per magazine to the nearest 0.1? So looks like we may have to do a little bit of rounding, but we're looking for the average number of Susan's ads per magazine. Let's see what the chart shows us. We have a number of ads in the magazine, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and how many magazines have that. So we're looking at average per magazine. Let's first look at how many total magazines we have. We're going to add up these numbers. 3 plus 5 is 8, plus 7 is 15, plus 4 is 19, plus 2 is 21. There are 21 magazines. And then to determine how many, she's got 1 ad in 3 magazines, 2 ads in 5, 3 in 7. So to get the total number of ads that show up, it looks like we're going to multiply across each one of these rows. So I'm going to say 1 times 3, she's got 3 ads here. 2 times 5, 10 ads there. 3 times 7 is 21. 4 times 4 is 16. And 5 times 2 is 10. Now to get her ads, we need to add up these numbers here. So you can either do that in your head or take your calculator and add those numbers. I get that there are 60 ads. So we're looking for an average. We're going to take 60 divided by 21. And I get approximately 2.857. We are rounding to the nearest 0.1. So that's going to take us to 2.9, which is answer choice A. Moving on to number 4, we're talking about factors on these next 2 questions. What are the positive factors of 10? We're looking for the positive factors of 10. So when we're looking at 10, we are looking at what numbers divide into 10 evenly, the factors. So when I'm looking at 10, I could look directly at these answer choices, or let's just do an exercise with doing that. So whenever I'm doing factors, I always like to start with 1 and that number, so 1 and 10. Then the next number up would be 2, and to divide 2 into 10, we've got to multiply by 5. Can't divide 3 into 10 evenly, can't divide 4 into 10 evenly, and now we're down at 5, back to 5. So it looks like our factors are 1, 2, 5, and 10, and that is answer choice B. Number 5 says, which of the following lists all the positive factors of 9? So we're doing the same thing. Again, I would go with 1 and 9. 2 does not divide into 9. 3 does, but it's 3 times 3, right? So our positive factors of 9 are 1, 3, and 9, and that's answer choice C. Now we're into least common multiple. What is the least common multiple of 5, 10, and 25? When we're talking about multiples, we're going to be increasing. So it's taking a number and then multiplying it by different factors. So when we have to find the least common, we're looking at what number does 5, 10, and 25 go into evenly, and it's the least number. Now, there's different ways you can do this. We could go about listing multiples of each of these three. 5, 10, 15, 20. Multiples never end. They go to infinity. And some of these that can get pretty big. On the ACT, we're trying to go quickly. So what I'm probably going to suggest is let's take a look at our answer choices. And since we're looking for least, let's start with the smaller number. And usually the values are given least to greatest. They could be greatest to least, but they're usually in some kind of order. So you could start with 10. Can we divide 5 into 10? Yes. Can we divide 10 into 10? Yes. But can we divide 25 into 10? No. So that already tells us we cannot have any number smaller than 25. When we look at 25, answer choice B, it works for 5 and 25 to divide into 25, but 10 does not divide into 25 evenly. What about 50? We can divide 50 by 25, and that's equal to 2. And we can take 50 divided by 10 is 5. And 50 divided by 5 is 10. So that is going to be our least common multiple, and that is answer choice C. Question number 7 says that the local deli serves pasta salad every 4 days and pretzel salad every 6 days. If pasta salad and pretzel salad are both on today's menu, how many days before they are both on the menu again? This is actually an application of using least common multiple, and you should be kind of familiar with how this question is set up because we see questions like this usually. It may not always be a pasta salad or pretzel salad that you see. It could be lights flashing every few seconds, and it has a different color light. But this is the general setup of this question. So let's just start with the pasta salad. It is going to be served every 4 days. So it's going to go at 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and we could go on and on. Let's take a look though at the pretzel salad now. It's going to be served on day 6, day 12, day 18, and continue on like that. We're looking for how many days are they both going to be on the menu again. This is assuming that they each are on day 1, and then we go from there. So they will be from day 1, where this one goes at day 4, this at day 8 and 12. Look, this one is also served on day 12. So we're going to serve these on day 12. That's going to be the next day, and that is answer choice D. Question number 8, we're going to be getting into fractions for the next couple of questions. And this first one says, put the following fractions in increasing order. Make sure you're looking at this. Now, as with all questions, there's multiple ways we can work on this. If you're familiar with working with fractions, that's going to be great, and that's going to be the easiest thing to do. One thing that I like to do is I like to order this so we're looking first for the smallest fraction. And when you are ordering fractions, to me, one of the easiest ways is I'm going to have 2 comparisons. So I'm going to set up comparing 1/2 to 3/8, and I'm looking for the smaller one. The way I compare is cross multiplying. So first I'm going to look at 2 times 3, and that is a 6. I put it above here. Or 1 times 8, and I'm going to put that 8 right here. 8 is larger than 6, so that means 1/2 is greater than 3/8. So 3/8 is our smaller fraction of these two. So now I'm going to look at the next one. I have 1/4. We're going to compare that to 3/8. Same kind of cross multiplying. 8 times 1 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 3/8 is larger. 1/4 takes the lead. And we compare 1/4 to 5/16. 4 times 5 is 20. 1 times 16 is 16. That's a 20. So this one's greater. 1/4 is still the smaller one compared to 7/8. 4 times 7 is 28. And 8 times 1 is 8. 28 is greater than that. So 1/4 is our smaller one. I'm going to look at my answer choices. And I only have 2 options, A and D, because B and C list 1/2 and 7/8. Now the next thing in order, that's going to be our distinguishing factor. A has 5/16 and D has 1/2. So we could just compare 5/16 to 1/2 and we get 16 here, 10 here. Whoops, wrong way. 5/16 is less than 1/2. So 5/16 is smaller. That means A is going to be our answer choice. Now, another way that you can do this is you could plug these fractions into your calculator and find those values and then compare the decimal values. And then you just have to make sure you put them back in order for your fractions. Or it's also, some of these fractions are not very difficult to kind of look at, especially like when you're comparing 1/2. You know that 1/2, when 8 is the denominator, is 4/8. So you should be able to look that 3/8 is a little less than 1/2. 1/4 is going to be less than 1/2. So whatever works best for you is basically the point, but definitely be familiar with working with fractions. Let's try question number 9. 9 says, when 6 3/4 is written as an improper fraction in lowest terms, what is the numerator? Several things we need to know. So when we look at the proper fraction, 6 3/4, and what makes that proper is that this is a mixed number. And we have a whole number of 6, a 3/4 that is fraction, where the numerator, the number on the top, is less than the number on the value, which is the denominator. When they want us to make this an improper fraction, we're going to have a larger value in the numerator. That's going to mean we're going to go from a mixed number to an improper fraction. And to do that, we take our denominator, the 4, multiply it by 6. 4 times 6 is 24. And then we add the 3. It gives us 27 over this original denominator. This is an improper fraction. And it's in lowest terms, which means there is no value that we can divide evenly into both 27 and 4. Now it's asking us for the numerator, which again we said is the number above the division bar. It's the number on top, and that is a 27. Answer choice D. Question 10 says, what is the least common denominator for adding these three numbers? So remember, adding fractions. If I'm going to take 1/6 and add it to 3/8 plus 5/12, without our calculator, we have to have a least common denominator. So we have to look at the 6, the 8, and 12, and we have to say, what is the least value that each of these three numbers will divide into? And so we could look at different things. We could roll off some multiples of 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. It's like our multiples. They go on and on. For 8, we have 8, 16, 24, 32. Continues on. And for 12, we have 12, 24, 36. But do you see a number that is in all three of these? We do have the 24. So 24, if we were going to add all these up, we would get a common denominator of 24, and that is answer choice C. Now we're going to take a look at reciprocals. Question number 11 says, if two reciprocals are multiplied together, what is their product? Okay, first of all, we need to know what reciprocals are, and that just means they are, when we have our numbers, we have to have two examples and to find out what's going to happen. So if I have, let's say, the fraction 1/2, the reciprocal of 1/2 is just making the numerator the denominator and the denominator the numerator. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2/1, which is 2. So let's also remember, if we have the number 4, its reciprocal is 1/4, because 4 is the same as 4/1. Now it's asking us what happens if two reciprocals are multiplied together. It doesn't give us what those values are, but we would want to come up with our own example and see what happens. So when I take 1/2 and I multiply that by 2/1, I get 2/2, which is 1. I would get the same thing if I multiplied this 4/1 by 1/4. And so our answer is going to be B, 1. Question 12 says, what is the reciprocal of 5/8. And this is very straightforward from what we just talked about. The reciprocal, we're just going to swap the numerator with the denominator, and we get 8/5. We're just going to swap those out, and we get B, 8/5. Now let's talk a little bit about percents. If a $350 laptop is discounted 15%, but then has a 9% sales tax added, what is the total price you pay? So first we have a discount. So we're going to take this $350 and let's multiply that by 15%. And when we're dealing with percents, we need to change it to a decimal. We're going to take the 15%, and it is the same as having a decimal here after the 5. We'll move it 2 places to the left, and that makes it 0.15. So we're going to multiply the 350 times 0.15, and you could put that in your calculator, and we get 52.5. This is our discount. That's going to come off of the $350. So let's subtract the 52.50 from 350. And this is the price of $297.50, but we can't forget taxes. So we're going to pay sales tax on this sale price. So we'll take the $297.50 and multiply this by 9%. Now again, with 9%, you've got the 9 with the decimal point here at the end. We're going to move it 2 places to the left. There's nothing up to the left of 9 but a 0, and we'll add the decimal point there. So that's going to mean we're going to put that right here, multiply $297.50 by 0.09, and we get 26.775. Now this is our tax that's going to be added, and with money, it's got to have 2 decimal points, and you know they're going to round it up, especially when it's taxes there, right? So we have $297.50. We're going to have to add to that $26.78. That's going to be our tax. Add those numbers up, and we get $324.28. And that is answer choice B. For questions 14 and 15, it says we're going to use this table. A poll of 50 random students in a high school was taken concerning a favorite lunch menu item. The results are in the table above. What percent voted for chicken tenders? So let's find chicken tenders. It says they got 14 votes. So to get a percent, it's going to be a part. So 14 voted for chicken tenders divided by the whole. How many total students took part in this survey? 50. So we'll take 40 over 15. You can plug that into your calculator because we're looking for a percent, and we get 0.28. Now in the previous problem, we went from a percent to a decimal. Now we're going to go from a decimal to a percent. So we're going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right, and we will have 28%, and that is answer choice C. 15 is also going to use the table, so we may have to slide back up for that. If this poll is indicative of how the 800 total students in the entire school would vote, what is the best estimate of the number of votes hamburger would receive from the entire school? So let's look at hamburgers above here. It said that 9 voted for hamburgers out of the 50. So that's going to be important. 9 out of 50 is the fraction that voted for hamburgers, but we have 800 total students that we're going to account for. So this was the percent that prefer hamburgers, and it's saying that percent is going to apply to all 800 students. So how many would have voted for hamburger in the total school? When you plug that into your calculator, you will get 144, which is answer choice C. 144 students are expected to prefer hamburgers. Question 16 says, as a jewelry consultant, Sue makes a commission off each item she sells. If her sales are $500, she makes a commission of $150. How much does she earn if she makes $850 in sales? So there's a couple of different ways we can set that up. We know we can look at what percent she makes, And to do that, we would say 150 out of 500. Plug that into our calculator. That is a 0.3% commission. So she's going to make 30% of what she sells. So if she sells $850, we can put that in our calculator. 850 times 0.3, she's going to make $255, and that is answer choice B. 17 says Julie visited a craft store where all items were 15% off. She wants to program this into a calculator so she can input the marked price and the discounted price will be output. What is the expression for the discounted price on a marked price of P dollars? So we know she's going to get 15% off. So let's take a look at our answer choices and see what each one of these tell us. So 0.15 of P, that's just saying 15% of the price. That's not going to give her what she's going to pay, right? That's just really her discount. So it's not A. What about B? We're going to do the same thing. So this is her discount plus 85% of her price. That's just going to equal back to this total price, really, 1P. That's not going to give us what we're looking for. Now, what about C? The full price minus 15% of the price. That's her discount. She's subtracting it from the price. It's going to be answer choice C. Just for looks, answer choice D gives us the discount minus the price. That's going to give us a negative number. It's in the wrong order there. So for 17, we have answer choice C giving us that expression. Question 18 says 250 students entered an art contest and the entries are divided into 4 categories as shown below in our chart. There are 50 prizes to be awarded. If the prizes are to be awarded in proportion to the number of entries in each category, how many prizes should be in the 10 to 11-year-old category? Which is right here. We have 80 entries in this category. Out of how many? 250. So the percent in that category is 80 out of 250. That's the percent that is supposed to match how we award the prizes. And there are 50 prizes. So we're going to take that percent, or in this case we've got it written as a fraction, but it's a percent, times the total number of prizes, plug that into our calculator, and we get 16. There should be 16 prizes awarded in that category. Answer choice B. Starting with question 19, we're looking at ratios, where it tells us a group of friends share and eat a whole pizza. Carrie eats 1 piece, John eats 4 pieces, Sam eats 3 pieces. What is the ratio of Carrie's share to John's share to Sam's? So we're looking for a ratio. As you can tell from our answer choices, we're going to have these colons: Carrie's share to John's share to Sam's. We want to make sure we get it in the correct order. So they eat the whole pizza, should be 1. So there are only 1 plus 4 plus 3. There are only 8 total slices of pizza. And Carrie eats 1, John eats 4, and Sam eats 3. So this is our ratio, 1 to 4 to 3, which is answer choice D. Question 20 says that Jane fills a bowl with colored jelly beans. There are 20 red, 16 yellow, 10 green, and 14 purple. In the lowest terms, what is the ratio of, here we have another ratio, of red to yellow to green to purple jelly beans? So let's see what we have. We had 20 red, and then we had 16 yellow, 10 green, and 14 purple, but it asked in lowest terms. So what that means is when we look at these numbers, we should be able to tell they're all even. I know at least 2 will divide into each one of these. So let's try, because we don't have this option as one of our answer choices. So if I divide each of these terms by 2, I'm going to get 10, 8, 5, and 7. And is that one of our choices? It is. Answer choice B. Now let's look at some rational number questions. Number 21. Which of the choices is not a rational number? Now, a rational number is any number that can be expressed as a fraction. So in questions like this, we have to look at our answer choices. By definition, I'm going to look straight at B. This is a rational number because it is expressed as a fraction. So answer choice B is out. C is out also because 5 is the same as 5 over 1. It is a fraction. That is out. Now let's take a look at answer choice A. Well, let's go ahead and we'll look at D. When we look at D, what this tells us is this is a repeating decimal. That means 21212121 repeats forever and ever. And you could calculate this and it would be expressed as a fraction. We could do that, but by definition, a repeating decimal is a fraction. That is a repeating decimal. And so that is out, and that only leaves us for answer choice A. And you could plug into your calculator 5 divided by 25 and do the square root of that, and you get a decimal with no ending point. When you don't have an ending point, or if it's not a repeating decimal, that is going to be an irrational number. We cannot express that as a fraction. Do not let it confuse you that under the radical is a fraction. If it was just 5 out of 25, which would reduce to 1 over 5, that would be a rational number, but it's that square root that gets us, the radical. Question 22 says, what rational number, again, we're looking for a fraction or a number that can be expressed as a fraction, is halfway between 1/2 and 1/3? So we're basically looking for the average halfway between 1/2 and 1/3. So I'm going to find the average of these two numbers. You could plug this into your calculator and do this with fractions. I'm just going to do it by hand and show you how I do finding a common denominator. That's going to be 3/6 plus 2/6 divided by 2. So we have 5 over 6 divided by 2 over 1. I'm going to work with my fractions. That's the same when we have division by fractions. We can multiply by the reciprocal. And so we get 5 over 12. 5/12. Answer choice C is the rational number halfway between 1/2 and 1/3. And I know that doesn't look right. You would think it would not be something with a denominator of 12, but you've got to think how fractions work and how everything is divided up if you're looking on a ruler or something like that. But the main point for our type of question, we're looking to do an average or a mean.